the talk was called DevSecOps Worst Practices. And you said that you get 15, so maybe we don't have time to talk about 15 of them. But are there a couple that keep coming up after the many years and nearly 400 companies you talked about that come up frequently? What are the worst DevSecOps practices?
So the first one is breaking builds with false positives. I'm sure you see why that's a problem, but a lot of companies, the vendor tells them, the salesperson tells them, oh yeah, just like plug it in and it just will magically make all your AppSec dreams come true. It'll be perfect. And then they're breaking builds because they're like, well, Netflix does it. I'm like, is the name of your company Netflix? No. Okay. So your company's not Netflix. So then you don't have to do what they do. And they're amazing. And like, I've had lots of amazing friends that work there and they're cool. We're not as cool as Netflix. I don't know how to tell you that, but we're just not. So we need to be more realistic. And it's okay. Not everyone can be Netflix. Of all the companies I know, only one is Netflix. And so and basically like we break trust every time we do that. Another thing is they just throw the tools in and they don't test them first. So even if they're not breaking any builds, like they throw in this tool and it's been like 6 hours and it's still running and they've done no testing. So they don't know why, or they've written the stack analysis tool and they didn't test it on a couple apps. They just tested it on the one tiny piece of code. And then they're testing it against all the apps. And it's like, oh, it reported 4,000 things, or, oh, it's tomorrow, it's still running. And this might sound really obvious, but I see it all the time. Or test results that are saved into the security tool. And then you have to remote desktop into another server. Then you need a special password and username. Then you go in and you can see those and you can't copy and paste or export them. No dev's going to fix that bug. They don't have time for that. They have work to do. Put your bugs with all of the other bugs. And then it can be part of the work that they do. But if you keep it a secret, they're not going to fix any or almost as many, like very, very little. And again, I see this over and over again. One that people asked about a lot after the talk was, so I call it unreasonable service level agreements. But I started doing a thing and I didn't realize everyone wasn't doing it. So I've had a lot of people comment on this one. So this might sound nuts when I explain it, and it might sound really obvious, but I see it everywhere where they decide our service level agreement is there will be no criticals or highs or mediums going into prod anymore. And we're going to break the build if it's one of those. And then people who support legacy apps can't go to prod, like at all, because they have 300 criticals that are technical debt. And so here they are, let's say they fix 10 and the AppSec person's like, no, you can't go to prod because you have all these criticals. So these 10 fixes stay not in production because it could be a more secure app. And so I just configured the tools to have 2 SLAs, like one for this is the stuff from the first scan we ever did. This is our legacy. And we will chip away at this slowly over time. But the new stuff, no new big vulnerabilities are going into prod. And then all of a sudden we're passing builds, right? I'm still going to hassle you about your technical debt. I'm still going to be a pain in your butt because that's part of being an AppSec job. You go and you bother them like, hey, so there's still 300. I thought we were going to go for 290 this month instead. What are we going to do about this, right? But I see AppSec person after AppSec person just breaking the build. So either the legacy people are never going to prod or they don't. And so one of my friends actually, she resigned. So I used to work somewhere and then she started working there after me to replace me after I did a contract there. And she said basically after a year, she did this search of all of her pull requests and almost like less than half were merged. And she said, I found tons of pull requests from you. And they're all critical and high vulnerability fixes. And she said there were over 100 that no one had merged because of their one service level agreement. And the other AppSec person kept fighting her. And she's like, that's it, I quit. I can't do this. I can't fix hundreds of bugs and have you not submit them because it needs to be perfect. We're not perfect, buddy, newsflash. And she was just like, ah. And so we had tea and she told me about it. And I gave her a hug because she needed one after that. But it seems so obvious, right? When I explain it like that, but there's tons of AppSec people who I call the old guard, where they're like, we're not letting any critical vulnerabilities into prod. I'm like, they're already there. You're not letting a new one in. Oh, come on.
I think when you explain things, it seems obvious, but I think, but I think someone coming from the outside would be like, yeah, of course, we'd block all the critical vulnerabilities, but that different mindset that you have to come in with to say, no, actually, we need to look at this a bit differently and move together because we're already starting off on a poor footing.
Yes, yes. And if you can automate it, all the better.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of hug ops. In the Drupal community, we embrace that a lot because there's a lot that goes wrong in Drupal, and you need a hug sometimes. So,
it's true. Oh, I should have told her I'm giving you hug ops. That would have been perfect.